Ancestors all over the earth never threatened anybody or attacked anyone, but they showed great hospitality only to be rewarded by the worst atrocities against us, the worst cases of racism, bigotry, and genocide and evil in all human history. And even today, the perpetrators and the descendants of the perpetrators are rewriting history and eliminating a lot of the injustices that were perpetrated against us, and in the process justify colonialism, historical trauma, and spiritual disaster that they scattered all over the earth. And this is shocking. Question is why and how can we end their ancestors' cycles of evil deeds?
In a world where personal growth is a journey of discovery, we at Marifado Family Network encourage you to take your next step to learning your true identity. Welcome to Bantu University, where spiritual growth meets ancestral wisdom. Here's how you can sign up today. Go to our website, select sign up today, fill in the form with your contact information, and tell us who you are, and press submit. Go to your email, check your spam box, select click here to activate, or copy and paste the link to your browser. Create a login password, set up your monthly subscription, and you are ready to go. Our course is designed to empower whether you're exploring your heritage or seeking clarity in your spiritual journey. Bantu U is the place for you. Are you ready to rediscover your divine ancestral wisdom?
We are considering why we must never forget, because the proof of their evil deeds and actions are clear, and we want to discover the actual source of their evil, so that at the end of the day we can survive the traps, we can survive the atrocities, the subtle, overt atrocities and overt actions that are addressed and focused on us. The legacy of their ancestral violence and systematic oppression can never be swept under the carpet by whatever means. The perspective that the Europeans have caused major wars. It is undeniable that the ancestors of Europeans and their cycles of evil deeds caused the two horrendous world wars, World War I and World War II, in which in World War I over 40 million human beings perished, and in World War II over 60 million people are perished. This disaster did not end there, because the ancestral cycles of evil deeds repeats again and again and again. Why? We know and we remember the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings that occurred when the Japanese had actually surrendered, and approximately 350,000 people were killed, followed by the Korean and the Vietnam War, which was a global tragedy of untold proportions, where a lot of people suffered and genocide was committed. When we look to South Africa, in Africa, today we see happy slaves, because according to George Santayana, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. We can see clearly that apartheid has been forgotten by the majority of melanin dominant human beings in South Africa. We are failing to end their ancestral cycles of evil deeds by electing their descendants to gain power again in South Africa. You can see that according to the independent poll, more South Africans favor the DA, which is apartheid party, than the ANC that liberated them. It is a sad scenario when you see that the ultimate betrayal of Africans is when a white supremacist Grunwald was selected as correctional minister. This continues to pour scorn on how our ancestors, like Sarah Baartman, born around 1789 in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, who was a Muntu, a Bantu of the Khoikhoi ethnic group, was captured and transported to Europe to be exploited in their zoos and in their museums. The Khoikhoi, a Bantu people, did not attack or abuse early European sailors. They actually gave them water as they were journeying to India. Now, to those melanin-dominant human beings in South Africa who vote for European parties, we want to ask, why did the Europeans treat us with such horrible cruelty when we had treated them with outstanding hospitality? Why has the Europeans not apologized? What is the source of their evil? And why are you supporting and obeying the likes of Stein Hussein and Helen Zela? This is very serious, because You can see our melanin-dominant brothers. They do not realize that Helen Zille claims that the legacy of colonialism was very good. That's what she claims until she was answered by Mbalin Tuli, who actually equated what she was saying to saying Nazism was good for German democracy and the advancement of technology. It is said that you can realize that Helen Zille herself said the EFF and the MK melanin-dominant parties are dogs. She said that publicly, but people still rush for selfies and gain selfies for that. How can we break the cycle of oppression and the cycle of cruelty if we behave this way? When you go to Australia and you check the history of Australia, you realize that there were major massacres, not just in some parts like Tasmania, but Australia-wide. And during that period, chemicals and the spread of diseases were orchestrated by Europeans, particularly the British, the French, and Belgians, inflicted severe exploitation and violence upon innocent humans who in many cases had welcomed them with respect and human hospitality. For instance, the last full-blooded Tasmanian Aboriginal man, William Land, who died in 1869, had his hands and feet cut off by a certain Dr. Crowther, who went on to extract his bones and did so in a rough manner, cut off his genitals, which he declared that they were like those of an animal. He famously fashioned the scrotum of Len into either a wallet or a tobacco pouch. He then took out his brains and said it looked remarkably like the brain of a white man, which surprised him. Why? Why would they treat other human beings this way? The Australian Constitution, established in 1901, excluded Aboriginal people from the census, effectively excluding them from citizenship and even threatening to deport them outside of Australia. In a 1967 referendum, a landmark referendum in 1967, it resulted in the removal of the Section 127 and the amendment of Section 51(16), which allowed Aboriginal people to be counted then in a census and enabling the federal government to make laws for their benefit. And continuously, Europeans in Australia mistreated indigenous people in Australia, rounding them up and putting them in chains, and head-hunting them, as well as taking off their ears and nailing them along as signs or trophies for victory. Why did they behave in so evil a way? Murdering and brutalizing Aboriginal Australians was integral in their character, in their behavior, and it was called Dinky D, Anglophile Aussie. Why? When you look at New Zealand, at all the Pacific Islands, Tonga, Samoa, the treatment is the same. Until we get the Right Honorable Dem Cindy Kiro, who said in Ikwiburuka, the genocide against the Tutsi was not an accident. It was a deliberate, methodical effort to erase a group of people and to bring suffering not just in those moments of cruel and violent action, but for generations into the future. This is a definition of genocide that is worthy to think of. There are hundreds of cases of atrocities committed against indigenous people in each continent. These highlight and give the worst cases of evil, of racism, of bigotry, and genocide in history. But these that we have given here are not the only ones. The questions that we need to ask and we need to exploit is, why did European ancestors treat others with such intensity of evil? Perhaps we ought to also ask, what is it that actually drives inhuman actions within same racial groups to perpetrate such evil and wanton destruction of others, who at certain times are not a threat to them? And when this is pointed out specifically, these days, we are told by European descendants to own up and to move on and to grow. But we cannot. We need to revisit this and to remember all this. You go to Southern America and the conquest of the Inca Empire, where Francis Pizarro and his conquistadors initially were received with warmth from the Inca ruler Atahualpa. However, later Pizarro captured Atahualpa, executed him, and systematically dismantled the Inca Empire. Same story in Brazil. Same story with the Herero, Namaqua, genocide 1904, 1908, German colonial forces committed genocide against the Herero and the Makwa people in what is Namibia today. Tens of thousands were killed. Some died in concentration camps of starvation and thirst. When you look to North America via the Caribbean, the story is the same. There's no variation, there's no different. There's the Trail of Tears, 1838 to 1839, forced relocation of the Cherokee nations from the ancestral lands, resulting in the deaths of thousands. The Wounded Knee Massacre, also the residential schools where children were taken and put into residential or boarding schools aimed at assimilating them and removing their culture and putting another culture into them. And at the end, it was just disaster, just genocide, and it is always disaster that is perpetrated by one group against another. Contrary to what the ABC would have you believe, English colonists' closest association with massacre, all these islands that we are showing here, these examples of widespread historical and ongoing challenges that is faced by melanin-dominant human beings that are divided against themselves, that think that some of them are not Africans, while all of them are considered as Africans by the colonists, by the exploiters, and by systematic injustice across all these different continents. Why are European ancestors, and why were European ancestors so evil to this extent that the whole earth suffered under their finger? European cruelty towards people who opposed no threat to them, such as during colonization and transatlantic slave trade, can be understood perhaps through various layers and various studies and various faculties of thought. How can we end their ancestral cycles of evil deeds in our personal lives? We need to read books. We need to know our own identity in this earth. Yes, if you read the book The Isis Papers, you also read the book The Iceman Inheritance by Michael Bradley, you realize the psychological projection of internal conflict, the moral disengagement and cognitive reframing, the economic and social competition among European powers, and their fear of others. This is a human scholarly answer. So, in order to break the cycle of systematic oppression that is the greatest cause of pain and suffering, we need to develop in our own communities and in our individual capacities great economic empowerment programs through educational advancement systems, as well as identifying who we are, engage in political advocacy, cultural revitalization, to join those who are involved in Afro-salvation activities like Marifado and many other groups, to learn to leverage innovative financial models, to master technology, and to be involved in grassroots movements, not to become victims, but to build self-sufficient and resilient communities that challenge and overcome the entrenched legacies of ancestors' oppression. There is war from another perspective, from the spiritual realm. There are evil gods and goddesses that are exploiting humans as the source of their food, manipulating you to generate it if you are ignorant or if you follow certain religions that we shall highlight shortly. We learn from our sages, from the Hermetica, a section that is very powerful. It teaches us that the gods will depart from mankind, a grievous thing indeed, and only evil angels, whom we call Mapvuri, Mamepo, will remain, who will mingle with men and drive the poor wretches into all manner of reckless crime, into wars and robberies and the frauds. These frauds are also spiritual frauds, spiritual lies, and all things hostile to the nature of the soul. These things that are hostile to the nature of the soul then generate food for evil gods, and the cycle is set in motion due to historical trauma from pain, moral disengagement, cognitive dissonance, psychological torture, Eurocentrism, intra-group hatred like black-on-black crime, dehumanization, economic exploitation, imperialism, racism, cultural genocide, social Darwinism, power dynamics, historical injustice, ethnocentrism, religions, with a record of enslaving us like Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Any negativity benefits the evil gods, and you feed the demons. You think you are spiritual, but you are feeding the demons. Like Apophis, evil angel, Vuri, Apepian, Bubi, Piper, one of the many forces using your car or umoya wako by physically emotionalizing you and your behavior so that you react with passion. And when you do that, you are producing food for them. The nature and behavior that thrills the cause of pain, fear, and emotional suffering on billions using colonization, using religion like these Pope Dum Diversas and Romanus Pontifex. These three that are shown here, the edicts, served as foundation and justification for the doctrine of discovery and set in place a catastrophic chain of events for indigenous peoples, all in the name of empire expansion and religious righteousness. This pure hatred that this Pope displayed is clear that he was setting in motion a spiritual cycle of evil deeds. The question is, which God is he serving? Definitely Apophis. There is no two ways about that. They have not apologized. They have dilly-dallied around their actions. This is a spiritual war where only Afro salvation can end their ancestral cycles of evil deeds, because it has many tools that can awaken your liberation and give you the capacity to fight Apophis, the god of darkness. You can do so by enrolling in our course, Bantu Foundations.
In a world where personal growth is a journey of discovery, we at Marifado Family Network encourage you to take your next step to learning your true identity. Welcome to Bantu University, where spiritual growth meets ancestral wisdom. Here's how you can sign up today. Go to our website, select sign up today, fill in the form with your contact information, and tell us who you are, and press submit. Go to your email, check your spam box, select click here to activate, or copy and paste the link to your browser. Create a login password, set up your monthly subscription, and you are ready to go. Our course is designed to empower whether you're exploring your heritage or seeking clarity in your spiritual journey. Bantu U is the place for you. Are you ready to rediscover your divine ancestral wisdom? Visit us at www.marifado.org to enroll and begin your transformation.
Till we meet again, remember, you can end these cycles of evil deeds when you discover the advanced practices of stopping Apophis, the king of evil, by enrolling in our training. Your manager to Priest Rabbi LM Mjaganja says subscribe to our channel Hamid Hebrew Ethics, like our video, share and leave a comment. Till we meet again, stay well, stay safe. Ameni.